Guys, my name is Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. I have a feeling today's program is going to be very well watched, very well listened to, and a program that may have some content and commentary that is difficult to digest, difficult to swallow. It's been a challenging 24 hours for the Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia communities. We have been, frankly, terrorized by a 19-year-old convicted felon, reputed gang member on the lam and on the run. It started yesterday morning when a Chevy Impala was flagged by a Virginia state trooper, a state trooper who identified a dead inspection sticker on a windshield. This leads to a high-speed chase, a chase that ends in the Ivy area as now we know Naim Hill jumping out of the Impala while the vehicle is still in drive. He then proceeds to run for his life, run for his freedom, run from the police. He makes his way on grounds. He causes a shelter-in-place and a lockdown for Thomas Jefferson University. 4 distinct police departments, a manhunt, chasing a convicted felon on foot. This chase involves drones, a helicopter, German shepherds, and armed and trained police officers. Still, this convicted felon and reputed gang member is somehow able to escape 4 police departments, weaving in and out of university buildings, holding the Lewis Mountain neighborhood hostage as police were driving in and up and down and through the streets of Lewis Mountain and the grounds of Thomas Jefferson University with a loudspeaker, barking orders through the speaker to anyone who could listen, ordering them to stay inside, down and away from windows. Think about that, folks. This 19-year-old does his best Carl Lewis impersonation, his best Michael Johnson impersonation. Instead of gold track cleats and gold medals dangling around his neck, he is clad in denim and a gray hooded sweatshirt. German shepherds and drones and helicopters and armed police officers cannot find the convicted felon. And we are on the edge of our seat following social media, looking for updates in real time from UVA police on what we can and cannot do in our homes, in our places of work, where our children go to school. This captivates and holds the attention of our community hostage for much of yesterday. We are anticipating the apprehension of this reputed gang member and convicted felon, but unfortunately, yesterday, a tweet is sent on the UVA Police Department account that the young man is no longer in the area and the shelter in place has been lifted. We as a community are left asking questions. What does it mean he's not in the area? Does that mean he's not on grounds at UVA? Does that mean he's not in the Lewis Mountain neighborhood? Does that mean he's in Earlysville? Does that mean he's in Forest Lakes? Does that mean he's in Jefferson Park Avenue, in Ivy, in Belmont? Where has he gone? Basic questions we are asking as just people that are fearful of our lives. Basic questions. We don't get clear communication, and I will hold UVA police accountable with what I thought was messaging that could have been much improved at the end. I thought they did a great job with notifying the community in real time of shelter in place, lockdown, he's on the loose, be safe, stay down, avoid windows. Great job with that. But how many of you, raise your hands in the air, had this question: where did this man go? And why was the final messaging so vague as it applies to his location? I had that question. And as we're trying to navigate these questions, asking very common sense questions, the news breaks after hours that Craig Kent, the CEO of UVA Health, has resigned. Craig Kent, in a special meeting called with the UVA Board of Visitors, offers his resignation, which Jim Ryan accepts. Craig Kent is the highest paid University of Virginia employee, and it's not even close. He makes more money than Jim Ryan, the president of the school, who accepted his resignation. Craig Kent recently got a raise of $500,000, ladies and gentlemen. And here, in one day, not a 24-hour period of time, but a 12-hour period of time, we saw a 19-year-old convicted felon, reputed gang member, who was arrested last year at a West Haven, City of Charlottesville playground, live streaming with his phone the fact that he has an AR-15 or something that's like an AR-15 and a pistol in his hands and on his person. And he's showing the world on live stream that he's doing this at a playground where kids hang out. This is a guy that is somehow, somewhere on the lam doing his best Dr. Richard Kimball impersonation, doing whatever he can to stay safe. And then 8 hours later, 10 hours later, Craig Kent, a doctor who is being linked by 128 anonymous UVA physicians to being the ringleader of a billing system that reeks of fraud, the ringleader of medical chart changing to maintain performance standards and national UVA hospital rankings, the ringleader of a workplace environment that is so toxic that if you don't toe Kent's company line, you risk promotion or demotion. You risk the professional tar and feather. I'm going to ask very difficult questions for the community. Who is more dangerous for humanity? A 60-something-year-old doctor that makes $1,500,000 a year, who's in charge of a health and hospital system that grosses billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, that instructs his middle management, physicians, to fraudulently bill dying and sick people, profits over patients, so the machine, UVA Health, can make even more money? Or is the more dangerous person a 19-year-old reputed gang member, convicted felon, on the run for his life somewhere, we don't even know where, willing to do whatever he can to stay out of jail? Is Naim Hill yet another sad byproduct of a pipeline to prison systemic failure? Is Naim Hill another sad byproduct of courtroom oversight and laxed criminal justice enforcement? And are there any ties and comparisons to Justin Barber, the Crozet killer, perhaps a byproduct of systemic failure, Naim Hill, perhaps a byproduct of systemic failure, and Craig Kent, the CEO, the head honcho of the entire system? So much to cover on the Wednesday edition of the I Love CVille Show. As you tighten that one shot for me, please, Judah Wickower. I offered this commentary yesterday on the I Love CVille Network. Dr. Kent resigned at an after-hours UVA Board of Visitors meeting last night on a day a convicted felon was on the lam, a reputed gang member who evaded and eluded 4 police departments while circumventing UVA grounds, and as UVA Health was on lockdown for most of the day. Dr. Kent resigned mere months after Jim Ryan, the president of the university, authored and signed a letter that backed Dr. Kent with an overwhelming vote of confidence. Not only did Jim Ryan back Dr. Kent, but he then called the 128 anonymous physicians malcontents, bitter and angry teenagers who were being mistreated at lunch at high school in the cafeteria. A percentage of the population that every organization has that's just bitter and angry, and it's something we have to deal with. That's literally what Jim Ryan said of the 128 anonymous physicians. I wrote yesterday on the I Love CVille Network that Dr. Kent resigned under the crossfire of anonymous pressure from fellow UVA physicians who alleged the dirtiest of scandals. UVA Health was exploiting sick and dying people with phony bills, basically charging sick people and people near death whatever they wanted, profits over people. And while they were doing that, they were pulling the medical charts of the sick and dying people, and they were changing the charts to maintain the University of Virginia's performance standards and national and regional rankings, hedging risk, hedging exposure. We have a house of cards at the University of Virginia, and it's crumbling. And we've been covering it on this show, the I Love CVille Network, for months. When this story broke, the anonymous 128 doctors, we said, other viewers and listeners of our family concurred that this was going to be the most significant story in University of Virginia history. And we're at the tip of the iceberg and the quicksand that is about to drown other people in Dr. Kent's peripheral, Dr. Kent's collateral damage. His wave, his wake is just starting. Does this quicksand capture Jim Ryan, a man who authored a letter that was nasty to the anonymous 128, called the anonymous 128 bitter malcontents, and said every organization has people like this? How far does this go in the C-suite totem pole, in the upper management totem pole? And why in God's name would Jim Ryan author and sign that letter when he knew Craig Kent had a history and a precedent of toxic professional workplace bullying, underhanding, undermining subordinates, and using professional leverage to get whatever he wanted in his leadership position. He did that at Ohio State, folks. He did that in his position at Ohio State, and it was well documented. This was about as terrible of public relations as you can see from a school president. And it's been a number of cases of piss poor public relations by the president of the University of Virginia. We saw under his watch student protesters in May of last year pepper sprayed in a pro-Palestine protest. Pepper sprayed by the police in riot gear. We saw under Jim Ryan's watch an investigative report that was so redacted as it applies to an investigation with 3 murdered football players. So redacted, so covered up, that the mother of one of the dead football players said, "They sent me nothing. I just want to know what happened to my baby on the day he died, and what UVA sent me is nothing." Her words. Her words. We've seen a public relations nightmare where Jim Ryan, on the record, is literally calling the paper of record in Charlottesville, the Daily Progress, a rag that he uses to line the cage of hamsters. Calling the integrity of the paper of record, using the paper of record by name, into question. What has happened with this leader who started his term at Thomas Jefferson's University in such likable Mr. Rogers capacity? At the onset of COVID, doing Zoom one-on-one video webinars with the community, his tie at half-mast, his Oxford shirt with the sleeves rolled up, explaining to the community what UVA was going to do to make it through the COVID pandemic. A man who encouraged the community to meet him in the morning and to run 5K jogs throughout the city to get to know him. A fall from grace that I have not seen in some time. And I'm going to ask you a straightforward question. Will the University of Virginia do what's right and release the third party, a hired law firm, their investigative report on what happened with UVA Health? It's fraudulent billing, it's medical chart doctoring, pun intended, it's toxic workplace, it's cronyism, it's bullying, it's backroom dealing, it's professional leveraging. Will we as a community get to see that report? Or will the University of Virginia hoodwink us yet again? Will the University of Virginia do the same thing it did to the parents of 3 dead football players, where they send a report to them that is an insult and a slap in the face, a report where one of the mothers said, "This is absolutely nothing, it's insulting, I want to know what happened the day my baby died"? And I'm going to do something bold on today's program. And I'm going to take a position on it that may surprise people in this community. And I'll start with you, Nakia Walker. The commentary you had to say on your Facebook page of me, absolutely uncalled for. And I'm talking to you, Nakia Walker. Uncalled for commentary from you. And I'm going to take a position on this show where I'm going to ask the community, who is more dangerous to society, humanity, and mankind? Dr. Craig Kent or a 19-year-old convicted felon and reputed gang member, Naim Hill? And my answer will surprise you, Nakia Walker, because I think it's Craig Kent all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. There's one man, this 60-some-year-old white guy, that is disguised in a lab coat, hiding behind an oak mahogany desk, earning $1.5 million yearly salary, wearing Brooks Brother suits and ties and button-down Oxford shirts that is basically charging sick people and dying people obscene fees for services not provided, and doing it under the guise of health care, under the guise of saving your life. And that is as despicable of behavior as you will find. Am I taking Naim Hill out of the accountability radar? Absolutely not. Naim Hill's day will come. And unfortunately, his day will come with years, if not decades, behind bars. And that's sad. But what Kent has done is beyond dangerous. It's exploiting people in the weakest position possible. And that's despicable. There's so much I want to cover on today's program. I think one of the first things we need to do with the young man that is on the lam is show a timeline of trouble for Naim Hill. Judah Wickower has put this together. Can you put on screen the timeline of trouble for a very troubled young man who is currently in the wind? Is that on screen? Take a look, viewers and listeners. The trouble started with this young man as a minor before he was 18, where he was convicted of a felony. Some media reports say the felony conviction had to do with gun violence and shooting into places with people. Unfortunately, like many troubled youth, the trouble continues to follow. And in November of 2023, he was arrested at a playground in West Haven, in the city of Charlottesville, with an AR-15 and a pistol, while inexplicably live streaming as a convicted felon the fact that he has an AR-15 and a pistol on his person on a playground. This is the definition of
dumb.
Judah's words. A convicted felon that cannot have guns has an AR-15 and a pistol and is papering the trail with evidence. Mm-hmm. Somehow, this guy is let out of jail before the sentence. This is just mind-boggling here. This is Judge Claude Worrell, right?
Yeah. But what's mind-boggling is that 2 days after he began his official sentence.
Oh, we're going to get to that. I want to set the stage. Commonwealth's Attorney Joe Plantania, I heard Chief Kotchis say this morning on Jay James's WINA show. Commonwealth's Attorney Joe Plantania wanted 3 years in jail for Hill, for the AR-15 pistol live stream at the West Haven playground. Judge Worrell somehow reduced that sentence to 14 months.
I thought it was originally 5 years.
It was 5 years. Attorney Plantania wanted 3. Mm-hmm. Worrell reduced it to 14 months.
With time served. Gets out early.
Before he gets out of jail, Hill and 2 other guys corner a 4th man in a jail cell. They hold him down in the jail cell. The jail right over here in Albemarle.
This wasn't just before he got out of jail, though.
2 days in.
2 days after his official sentence started.
48 hours after his official sentence started, Hill and 2 other people hold somebody down, arms behind his back, and proceed to beat this guy almost to death. They crush and break his orbital skull, ladies and gentlemen.
Orbital bone.
Orbital bone. He gets charged, put the timeline of events back on screen, for this brawl 48 hours after being in jail with malicious wounding, malicious bodily injury, malicious wounding by mob, and gang participation. The only reason, and we can go back on a two-shot, the only reason this did not become more significant for Hill, perhaps there's two reasons. Reason number one, the victim refused to testify.
Yeah.
The guy who got his ass beat in jail refused to testify. Reason number two, I'm not sure the Albemarle County courts even had a good indication that this was all happening. Because he was allowed to leave jail. He was allowed to get out of jail despite this hanging over his head.
Yeah.
And then the timeline of events, Judah, back on screen. Judah's done a great job with this.
4 days after the victim refused to testify, he was released from jail.
4 days after. Say it again, Judah.
4 days after Hill's unfortunate victim refused to testify, Hill was released from jail.
I want to know this. Why was this man allowed out of jail? Why was this man allowed out of jail? If we keep showing troubled youth that accountability is zilch, zero, nada, troubled youth will continue to push the envelope. If my 6-year-old, who's in first grade, gets away with an inch, the next time he will try for 2, and the next time 3, and the next time 4. That's why we have consequences. If you beat the bejeebus out of somebody and then get let out of jail, you're going to continue thinking you're untouchable and invincible. I have so many questions. Was this systemic court system failure? Systemic court system lack of accountability? Systemic court system unorganization? Systemic court system malpractice? Even the chief of police on radio this morning of Charlottesville was saying, I do not know why this man was out of jail. And he even referenced the leniency of the judge with reducing the sentence.
I can somewhat understand the leniency. In the case of...
I really want to hear how you're going to make this argument. You understand the leniency of a convicted felon live streaming on a playground where kids hang out that he has an AR-15 and a pistol.
If he wasn't firing them off, he
can't have the guns. He's a convicted felon.
I understand that. And it was a stupid thing to do, but it was a non-violent act. And putting someone away for years for something stupid, which didn't result in harming anyone, is harsh. Now, 2 days after, when he breaks the orbital bone of a fellow inmate, then I'm surprised they even considered letting him out of jail. But up until that point,
this is a man that as a juvenile is shooting into public spaces where people are at, is in possession of stolen vehicle. This is a man that has the audacity to live stream on a kid's playground an AR-15 and a pistol in his hands as a convicted felon who knows he can't have weaponry on his person.
Yeah.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. This man has fooled the systems how many times?
fooled the systems? How do you get that?
Well, it appears to me that what you can do as a 19-year-old in this community is shoot up a public space and have a stolen vehicle, do very little time for that. You can then you could go to a West Haven playground. Then you can go to he was a minor. Yes, does it matter if he's a minor?
I think it does.
It matters to you that someone who's 16 or 17 years old chooses to go and shoot at other people, and then we're going to give them grace and empathy that, oh, this guy is a minor. He's 16 or 17.
We're not discussing that conviction.
That right there was the fool me once. Shame on you. The fool me twice, shame on me, was taking the AR-15 and the pistols to West Haven Playground and live streaming it for everybody as a convicted felon. The fool me 3 times, shame on me, was beating the bejeebus out of somebody in jail 48 hours after going to jail. The fool me 4 times was literally...
If you're just going to label everything as fool me, then it doesn't have any meaning.
Will respectfully disagree, and I would imagine many of the viewers and listeners disagree with you as well. The fool me 4 times is when he literally fooled 4 police departments for hours while on the run as Dr. Richard Kimball. Fooling German Shepherds, drones, helicopters, the Virginia State Police, the Albemarle County Police, the Charlottesville Police, and the UVA Police.
I like to think of him as Jason Bourne.
Okay, now he's Jason Bourne. This guy right here is going to have a movie written after him. My advice to anybody that knows Naim Hill, encourage the young man to turn himself in, because the police and federal authorities are proceeding as if the man is armed and will use the most extreme caution possible with apprehending this 19-year-old. And the last thing this community needs that is reeling with death and despair and murder and mayhem is more death and despair. And we certainly do not, as a community, need death and despair and murder and mayhem when it's police on a 19-year-old black man.
Yeah.
We don't need that. So if you want the best outcome for Mr. Hill, encourage him, if you're in earshot or can communicate with him, to go to the local police station and turn himself in, because those set of circumstances are the most advantageous ones possible for this 19-year-old young man.
No doubt.
Perhaps he will have some semblance of life and runway of life left after he does his time. But if he proceeds to be on the run, or if he takes it a step further, he wants to go down in a blaze of nasty, 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 infamous glory, he will either die at the hands of the police, or his time in jail will be exponentially longer. If you have a way of communicating with him, encourage him to turn himself in. In a 1-month period of time, we had a homicide on the Water Street parking garage. We had a gentle giant in Crozet battle mental health issues to the point where his sister and mother are telling the Albemarle County Police, you need to take his guns away. He's dangerous to this community. Then he proceeds to go to the Harris Teeter Shopping Center with an arsenal of weapons in his car and starts Tommy gunning people down, kills 2 people, a man and a woman. The man has 2 daughters of school age, the woman a retired nurse. An off-duty law enforcement officer, unnamed, Albemarle County Police is calling him a good Samaritan, sprints out of the teeter, ribeye and Heinz 57 in tow, pulls out his weapon, his concealed weapon, his personal gun, and shoots the man down. Yesterday on Facebook, the former mayor of Charlottesville saying, if this guy is so trained as a law enforcement officer, why didn't he shoot Justin Barber to injure him and not shoot to kill him? I was floored reading that commentary. You have a man sprinting from a grocery store, heading to gunfire instead of running away from the noise of gunfire. And he's expected to be such a talented marksman that he's able to graze the bodily flesh of a human from 10, 20, or 30, 40 yards away, as opposed to putting the person down and ending the bloodshed.
We also don't know his positioning. He could have been firing over cars. What we do know is that only 2 people were killed because he took action.
Bingo. And to put into question the Good Samaritan's actions in any capacity is the definition of clouded judgment. Clouded judgment.
Yeah.
I see other activists in this community that are making this about police theater. Other activists in this community that are making this about race. Other activists in this community that are making this about the flock cameras.
That's just absurd.
Other activists in this community that are making this about pretextual traffic stops, poor messaging, and terrible leadership. I push back on all that word salad. All of that is word salad. That is all word salad. And I push back on it and I say, have you ever been in a position where you wake up every morning and you put on a bulletproof vest, you holster a gun, and you leave your family and you risk your life to keep others in the community safe and alive? And until you've been in that position where you get out of bed, you holster a weapon at your hip, you put on a bulletproof vest, a badge, and you go work a shift for meager pay, extremely meager pay. Want to know how many city police officers live in the city? A paltry percentage. Paltry percentage. And until you're in that position, you don't utilize language like pretextual traffic stops, security theater, the off-duty law enforcement officer should have shot to graze Barber's butt and injure him as opposed to killing him and ending the bloodshed. Asinine thinking. And the most significant aspect of this entire story, the most significant aspect of the Naim Hill on the lam story, the most significant aspect of the Justin Barber killed 2 in Crozet, Harris Teeter story, all this happening within 9 days of each other, is the most dangerous person of all that is a 60-something-year-old, salt and peppered haired, lab coat wearing, Brooks Brothers donning, fountain pen holding, satchel case lugging, Dr. Craig Kent. Mark that down. How about them apples, Nakia Walker? That's the most dangerous person here.
Yep.
A man that instructs other physicians who are at his professional mercy to phony bill dying people and sick people. And then, with the benefit of retrospect, look at medical charts and change them so his department and his machine and his organization is painted in a better light so the machine can maintain their national rankings and hang their banners near Jefferson Park Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I said this when the story broke, and I'll say it again, and then I'll get to you, the viewer and listeners' comments on the show. But I said this when the story broke, and I'll say it again. And if you have a comment, put it in the feed, and I will relay it live on air. When that UVA Health story broke, I said this would be the most significant story in University of Virginia history. And you watch. It's going to lead to the fall from grace of many associated with Kent. And here's one of the most damning elements of all this. Someone who you may agree or disagree with me, I'm confident and speak with conviction and speak with doing my homework that Kent is the most dangerous of the three, Hill, Barber, and himself. I don't know this one aspect for certain, but I am led to believe that Kent chose the option to resign before getting fired because of what was in that third-party investigative report. So he was given an opportunity to maintain goodwill and standing, his personal brand, imaging, by resigning instead of getting pink slip. The follow-up question we should all ask, did he get a bag of money to resign and leave?
And
he just got $500,000 raise. Within the last handful of months, he got a $500,000 raise. He's the highest paid employee at the University of Virginia. Higher than the president. Did he get a bag of money to resign? And that shows you the world we live in. Here you can have a salt and peppered haired, white lab coat wearing, Brooks Brothers donning, fountain pen holding, leather satchel dragging, 60-some-year-old doctor order other people, leverage other people to phony bill and medical chart change, and he will be given by his superiors, because we all have them, a chance to trot off into the sunset on an $85,000, $850,000 thoroughbred horse with a Stenson cap and the best leather boots possible, with a bag of cool and crisp $100 bills in it. Where a 19-year-old kid is going to probably lose the majority of his life once he's caught. If, praise God, thank God, hope to God, say a prayer right now, he turns himself in. Worst case scenario, this goes to a fight for freedom and a fight for being able to stay out of jail. And that's not going to end well. Fucking crazy. Comments, put them in the feed. I will relay them live on air. We will go to number one in the family. Deep Throat. He highlights the fact that the trail was papered with Craig Kent at Ohio State, with faculty at Ohio State expressing no confidence in him as a leader. Deep Throat says, why in the hell did they hire this guy in the first place? Very puzzling.
Yeah.
He also highlights that Hill being on the lam and the danger it is to our community is on Judge Worrell. He highlights that Commonwealth's Attorney Joe Plantania tends to be lenient and progressive in general, but he takes gun violations pretty seriously. This is on the judge. Deep Throat highlights that I would say a felon possessing a gun is not a minor mistake. J-dubs. We have a lot of very anti-gun people in this town asking for all kinds of new restrictions on gun rights. Consistency would demand that they take violations of existing gun law very seriously. And he also highlights that he believes that the former mayor, Nakia Walker, is not of sound mind. John Blair, number two in the family, has this to say. Jerry, I know that recency bias often leads to believing that today is bigger than any time that preceded it. But in 1 week from February 17th to February 24th, we had the Crozet shooting, 2+ inches of snow, The owner of Violent Crown appearing before the Board of Architectural Review to tear down part of the downtown mall in exchange for a large residential development project. The UVA Board of Visitors meeting to change course on transgender policy at the hospital. UVA women's tennis receiving its first ever national #1 ranking. A manhunt in the city, and the resignation of UVA Health's CEO. It is almost unbelievable to see that much major news in one calendar week.
No doubt.
It's insane. And we have all that news that John has very appropriately outlined. Despite having news in this community operating at a shadow of its former self. I got to give props to Hall Spencer, maybe the godfather of courts and crime reporting. Currently serving that position for the Daily Progress, the one-time founder of the CVille Weekly, the one-time founder of The Hook, a real estate investor of prolific proportions who at one time owned the Jefferson Theater, Hall Spencer. His reporting in the Daily Progress today on the Hill saga was in-depth, robust, and detailed. CVille Tomorrow in today's publication called Joe Plantania the Commonwealth's attorney of Albemarle County. He's the Commonwealth's attorney of the city of Charlottesville. The Commonwealth's attorney of Albemarle County is coming on this program on Wednesday, a week from today, and his name is Jim Hingley. Ginny Who watching the program. We just lost 2 Virginia Beach police officers after a traffic stop. I cannot imagine the officer yesterday expecting a manhunt to ensue after pulling someone over for an expired inspection sticker. There was one activist in this community that will be left unnamed. And this particular activist said the police should not pull people over for inspection stickers, no matter how dead those inspection stickers are.
That's what a pretextual stop is.
Do you want to unpack that statement?
Yeah, just very quickly, a pretextual stop is when a police officer pulls someone over for a minor violation, essentially looking to find a larger violation. So it could possibly be argued that
is racial profiling.
I don't even know if it. I suppose, yeah, it could be. That's taking a giant leap.
Can I make a very succinct statement? A car or a truck that has an inspection sticker that is more than 4 months old on its windshield should be pulled over by the police because of basic safety of being on the road. Cars, trucks should be inspected by mechanics because they have gasoline. They weigh tons. They go fast. And if they're not inspected or checked by professionals, they can hurt people. So yes, if your inspection sticker is 4 months old, you should be pulled over by the police, regardless if you're black, white, Puerto Rican, or Haitian. And the fact that I have to say that on February 26th in the year 2025 is absolutely mind-boggling to me. And the fact that there's people in this community that are perceived by some to be leaders that leverage expired inspection stickers as a way to classify it as racial profiling boggles my mind. Cars and trucks weigh tons. They go fast. Not having them checked by mechanics is dangerous for the community because they can hurt people. I feel like I'm talking to my 6-year-old. Insane. driving to school today, drive my oldest to school today. Haven't had a chance to have this full conversation yet because the morning's been busy with my wife, with my job. I know my wife's watching now, so her ears are gonna perk up. Our oldest, driving him to first grade today to school. He said, I was sitting while you were getting ready, Jerry, after you played sports, and there was 2 older girls sitting next to me. They were in 5th grade at my school, and they were telling me about someone who escaped out of jail. And that's why we had to stay in school all day. Can you tell me about that, Dad? I'm like, well, let me figure this out. Decide to turn the radio on. Got it set to the morning news. Chief Kotchis is on there talking about what he just asked. He said, see, Dad, they're talking about it on the radio. Spent about 15 minutes driving to school today with a 6-year-old asking about jail and escape and how are they going to catch him and is everything okay? I was an aspect of parenthood I wasn't prepared for. Jeez Louise, this entire thing, this parenthood is something I'm not prepared for. No manual for all this. And at the 127-minute marker with 57 straight minutes of talking on this talk show and very real and straightforward language, we don't beat around the bush on this show. It's long-form content that you cannot take out of perspective. I will close with this. I highlighted a Crozet killer. I highlighted a 19-year-old convicted felon, reputed gang member that's on the run. And I highlighted a 60-something-year-old doctor that's making $1.5 million, and that's the head of UVA Health. And for any activist that's trying to use this out of context against me, I said the most dangerous of the 3 is the 60-something-year-old, $1.5 million, clean record, lab coat wearing physician. The most dangerous of the 3, and it ain't even close in my book. And he's the white old guy. Mm-hmm. And I highlighted on this program that if you have in any way to communicate with the 19-year-old that's on the lam, please tell him to turn himself in. Because the folks that are hunting for him are using the utmost caution, as they should. And the utmost caution means they are armed and they are looking to protect themselves and their colleagues. And the last thing this community needs is for it to end in death. We've had enough of that. And I added on this program in closing that the judge that offered leniency, despite precedent, should be at the least disappointed with his judgment. And I'll sign off by saying whether you believe in God or not, or whether you believe in a higher power or not, or whatever you believe or whoever you believe in, ask for some kind of positive outcome here. Because this is an outcome. To say that we are skating on thin ice is an understatement. We're skating on a pond that's got 2 inches of ice. And it's got the bottom of the pond that is a alligator and crocodile haven. Judah Wickower and Jerry Miller on a Wednesday afternoon on the I Love CVille Show.